So, Alex Coe.
Sean.
So, Alex Coe, ex-Survivor contestant and all-round good guy.
That's it, mate.
International man of mystery. Yeah, so welcome. Thanks
you very
for coming
much.
in, man.
It's good to be here. I'm really excited for this. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. So, you've obviously just stepped off. How long has it been now since you've been on TV?
It finished airing just over a month ago, maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago. We were on the island July, August last year. So, yeah, near on 9 months now.
Was it a great experience?
It was an amazing experience. It was a tough experience, though. Really challenging. But all in all, I would do it again in a heartbeat. I loved it.
Yeah,
it's just one of those things.
How long were you away? Like in total, how long were you away?
Away from family for, I think it was like 47 or 48 days.
Right.
On the island for 39.
Yeah, right.
So a couple of things either end of it. Yeah.
And you can't really have much contact. I mean, on the island, no contact with family?
No contact with family whatsoever on the island until you're either voted out or win. And yeah, you get like a couple of phone calls when you're in Samoa at the very start before you go into the island, into the game. So we had 2 phone calls then where I got to call mum and call me. But yeah, 39 days, 0 contact.
Is it good or is it like how does break that 39 days down into phases? Like, is there this is awesome, this is scary, this is
I think the very first challenge, the first part of the game is like just the biggest rush of adrenaline I've ever experienced, apart from the MMA fight, which we'll get to later. But then the first week is the hardest for me. You don't have any shelter. You've got the clothes on your back and you're getting minimal food compared to what you normally eat. And that first day, it just bucketed with rain and everything was wet. And it was just like that for the next week. And I remember like getting up in the middle of the night and like trying to do star jumps and stay warm just so we can get another like.
Is there a risk of getting like? Is there actual? Are you actually at risk of getting properly messed up?
It's very real. Like you're not sleeping and you're eating a lot less, and there's no smoke and mirrors around that. But at the end of the day, like I knew that there's a medical tent that's 400 meters down the road, right? Sure. And that if we ever get hypothermia or whatever, they're going to be there in an instant. Like it's a TV show. They don't want people to die. But it is very real. And it's cold, man. Like at night, when the wind's blowing and you're right on the beach and like everything's wet and you're like sleeping on sand, it's fucking cold, man.
And were there people there that did crack?
Honestly, man, I was really impressed with everyone. Like I knew that my body, like and being the sort of more physical person on the show, I was going to cope a lot better. And everyone struggled, but like everyone got through. And it's one of those things like when you're surrounded by 12 other people that are in the same boat, all struggling, you sort of like you somehow find a way all together. But yeah, I think the physical side of the game was really one point, but the psychological side of it as well was taxing. Especially my position. I don't know if you watched the whole series, but I was on the back foot for a lot of it. And that I'm used to having a lot more clarity around my life. And then this time around, I was like unsure of there's people lying to you every day. And you just don't know how to handle that. So mix the psychological suffering in with the no food, the no sleep and everything. And yeah, it was pretty tough.
Hey, look, I think it's still one of the best shows on TV. I didn't watch all of your one. I watched parts of it. We were sort of traveling and stuff and the kids were doing other stuff and we never got through the religiously watching every episode like we normally do. But I think it's just such a great concept for a show and
it's an amazing social experiment.
Yeah. And I think you can learn a lot about people. You can learn a lot about life, and I don't know. I think it's a good family show. Like, there's not many shows you can sit down and watch with your family, and it's not offensive or it's not rude or it's just good TV, good solid entertainment for everyone.
Yeah, I agree, and I think one of the biggest lessons that it teaches, and it's something that like I think we need more of in the school system is like resilience. You're out there, and so many people in the world have like nothing compared to what we live, right? We're so lucky. And being out there sort of when you've just got like nothing, just beans and rice to eat, the same thing every day, and you're sleeping under a leaky shelter, it makes you realize how lucky we are and then build a little bit of resilience with, everyday life, I guess.
Well, I think that's That's why, so the game it becomes surviving, so you're literally trying to survive. And we live in an environment where our survival has been taken care of for us. So like there's no real there's no effort to survive, and therefore we create other games, I guess, to fill that void, right?
Yeah.
What was the rest of it like? So was once you got into that sort of second, third week, did you settle in and just start to enjoy it?
Yeah, so you enjoy it. It's like a roller coaster, like I guess how life is. And there was some really, really fun moments, like the challenges. I love the challenges when you get there, but for the most part, man, you're just deprived of any luxuries, any little dopamine hits that you're so used to, whether it's the phone, whether it's like a snack, or whether it's love, like whether it's a hug or sex, whatever. There's just nothing, man.
Yeah.
And it just breaks you. I remember day 10. I'd been blindsided the 3 or 4 days before, and then I'd lost like another ally 2 days later, and I was like on the bottom of the bottom, and I was just like hungry, tired, and cold all the time, and I was just like, man, my life is so sick. Going, why am I here? Like, what am I doing this?
Yeah.
That was day 10. I remember it like very clearly. But then, then literally 3 days later, I found myself getting back into Alliance, enjoyed a challenge, won the immunity challenge, and then it just like picks back up again.
Yeah.
So it is really interesting the sort of waves you go through in the game, and I guess
it's healthy for you to go through it.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, yeah, definitely.
I mean, I've not done anything like that, but I know that I've put myself in some spots in life where, I think the fact that you get through things like that to just impress yourself, and then next time when life gives you a challenge that, whether it be loss of a loved one or something really tragic happens, you've got this, you don't freak out as much because you've got this sort of base level of confidence in yourself that, hey, I've been through this, something maybe not as bad, but you know that things get better and worse. And I think that's, like you said, something that children especially could benefit from, experiencing some hardships,
That's really interesting. You said just before about like the loss of a loved one, how that could maybe rock you. I had a moment in 2021 where I had invested a bunch of money in crypto, and it had gone really, really well, like 35x the money, 10 grand into 350. Wow. I was thinking, fuck yeah, how good is this? Like, I'll just cash out soon and I'll be able to travel around for the next few years and live the luxurious lifestyle for a bit and invest some of it, and that'll be my future moving forward. And Bitcoin cascaded in March 2021, and the guy who I'd invested with, he was like a hedge fund. He'd call me and say like, we've lost everything. I said, what do you mean? Like, surely they've just gone down in value. It'll recover. He's like, no, I was leveraging it all, like everything. And so
you lost all your money.
Lost everything.
Wow.
350. Well, it was 10 grand, right? But it was essentially, in my eyes, I was thinking $350,000. And it was just gone, like a puff of smoke. And that broke me, man. Like that was a really, really tough time. And then I went through all the phase.
How old were you?
I would have been 21. No, older than that, 23, 23 or 24. And I went through all the stages of like just despair, frustration, anger. Like I went through everything, and then I slowly came back out of it and started to accept it. And then I got to a point where I was like, all right, I've dealt with that, and it was brutal. What else now? If worst case scenario, what could happen to me tomorrow that would shake me again like that? And the death of the family was the one that I thought of. Like if someone had passed away that was super close to me, that would be the next thing that I would struggle with. So it's interesting that you mentioned that. And I think that it's important for us to go through those troughs. And I think that the biggest growth that I've ever had have come just after the times of my like worst points. Do you know what I mean? And I think without those real lows, or without those that real hardship, or that point that just breaks you, it's difficult to grow as a person. That makes sense?
Yeah. It's also difficult to look at those moments and say, oh, that actually had a purpose. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's difficult to look at those moments and say, oh, that actually saved me in some weird way.
And more importantly, in the moment, it's like impossible. When you're there,
of course,
it's virtually impossible to say, how can this actually be good for me in the future? But looking back at the crypto thing now, it's taught me a super valuable lesson, man. Like, play the risky game with, 20 or 30% of the portfolio and play a little bit more a safer game with the other.
Oh, look, it's brutal, man. There's no, even now I'm listening to it going, oh, that sucks. But, you learn that, we have this conversation all the time. Like I was talking to my daughter the other day about like, we were at Byron Bay on the beach, and there's some handsome young guys like yourself, walking around, and there's all these beautiful girls there, and I'm thinking that's just like the best time of a young man's life, right? And he's able to go up to these young girls and talk to them and And I'm thinking, if you're some big, overweight, disgusting billionaire, how much of your fortune would you give to just be able to walk down a beach and feel healthy and happy and free and, in the sun and be attractive to others and attracted to others? And like, there's certain things in life that, money just literally can't buy. If you don't value it, also you can very easily get distracted with what's important. And some of these things are sent to test us, like, and remind us, I think, of what is important. It sounds so cliched, but I look at things like that, and what path would your life have gone on had that 350K manifested itself into your account? What would you know about life and living? What would you have missed out on? Would you have even gone on Survivor? Like, who knows?
Exactly.
So you just can't look at it that way.
Yeah, I think we all have this, well, maybe not all, I don't think all is the right word here, but I certainly feel like, from my experience, that I had this idea that getting a giant pot of gold would fix all my issues. And I felt like that growing up as a teenager into a young adult. But I've slowly started to realize that there's so much more important things within yourself, within the relationships that you have with other people, that matter to me more than any amount of money. And like, it's a really, I guess, it's a liberating feeling. I mean, I still desire to, to grow wealth, to live in abundance, and to help other people financially as well. But I think that realizing that, the most important thing to me is being able to look at the ones that I love, look at myself in the mirror, and realize that, I uphold the values that I stand for, and that I don't need to be defined by this big pile of money, I guess. Yeah, and it's not just like black and white. It doesn't just. It's not like I just feel like that all the time. It ebbs and flows, and then I'll turn into like, I'd love to make more money so I can go and climb Everest now, or I want to go and do this and that. So I guess it is a bit of a roller coaster, but I think that
there's also, I think, a human element to it, like a human nature part of it, that there is some sort of competitive, like I think about communism, right? And if everyone has the same thing, and like in countries where, for example, everyone's riding scooters, right? Like everyone's equally as poor as the next guy, for example, and everyone's got a scooter, right? Like, you notice that like the guys will still put like a gold wrap on the front of their scooter, or they'll put some LED lights on their scooter, or that there's all, even in an economy where everyone's as equal to the next guy, whether it be they're all equally rich or equally poor, but even in situations where everyone's kind of forced to be equal, which is kind of what a communistic sort of viewpoint is.
There's still this like dominance
Everyone
hierarchy.
still wants to build a hierarchy within that that little millimeter of gap they've got. They'll still try to put some sort of levels in there. So, it's tough because you're trying to live this life of abundance, and you're trying to live this life of just, enjoy what you have and gratitude and all that stuff. But there's also something in human nature that programs us to then strive and compete and push and, and look at the next person and compare ourselves to what they're doing. And I don't think there's any escaping that, as much as we try.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. The very first like real book that I ever read was one at school, but then I like got into the sort of self-growth era, I guess. And I read 12 Rules of Life by Peterson. Yeah. And the very first chapter about the lobsters, I assume you've read it?
I have, yeah.
Yeah. It speaks about the lobsters and the dominance hierarchy and stuff like that. And I think that
do you want to explain it a little bit? Just in case people haven't read it.
Okay. All right. So essentially, oh God, it was that long ago. Essentially, like the lobsters, this is dating back millennia to when humans didn't even exist. These lobsters would find ways to stand out from other lobsters to win the females, and then the biggest lobster would be the biggest, baddest boss, and he would get the best mate and things like that, or the many mates. And I think that he's really good at articulating the similarities between that and humans in today's day and age, and how it hasn't changed at all. And then I had it again and I lost it. I literally, and then you changed it. No, I think that's right. I think that I think it's healthy, like you said before. It's healthy to acknowledge that and not necessarily just what am I trying to say here? What am I trying to say here? I think paying attention to that and not just like ignoring it and not just like
dismissing it.
It's kind of like a noble thing, or it feels kind of like a noble thing to just try and do good by everyone and make everyone equal. But I think paying attention to it and making it, acknowledging that it is there, it will help the system. I guess I'm trying to say it. I don't know.
It's a very fine balance. This is why we have problems with public housing and things like that, because the solution is people don't want things given to them. People want to find that pathway to success. They want to find that way to actually make themselves and be self-made.
Yeah.
Right? And it's very difficult when you get hacks, and this is like, these biohacks or any type of hacking of the system, any type of cheating the system. This is why the guy who takes testosterone or steroids is never going to feel as accomplished as, there's always that asterisk, right?
Yeah.
And people don't want that asterisk, people don't want that. People want to be able to hold themselves open to the world and be totally honest with everything they've ever done and be revered for what they've achieved with nothing hidden, And so I think that when we do these sort of, we have these to be honest with you, $350,000 earned in that manner is also a hack. You didn't actually make it.
Yeah.
And that's why it would have been a hollow, it would have been a hollow, like there would have been a hollowness to it. Maybe not 350,000, but if that could have really messed with you. I know I've had clients like that have inherited money, for example, and it just cripples them because they can't move because they don't know how they got it.
Yeah.
They don't want to lose it, and they don't know how to make it again. So they've just got this money, like dad's died and left them $500,000 and they're just shitting themselves because they don't know how to make it.
Yeah.
And my kids and I were having a discussion the other day about what would you do if someone gave you $1 million, like if you got $1 million, if we were given $1 million or something like that. I'm not sure. My daughter came up with this great question, but it was like, they said, Dad, what would you suggest we did if we got $1 million? And I said, put it in the bank or invest it and just get interest on it while you work out how the world works. Because my son was like, I'd buy a business and I'd buy this and I'd do that. It's like, he's only 14, he's allowed to dream. But I'm like, and this is the reason why a lot of people with money end up broke. All these NFL players and things like that they get given a $30 million contract and they're broke, and people can't understand how. It's because you don't actually know how money works or how the industry works or how the world works. And if you can't add value to it and produce something, it's going to disappear.
And how do we then teach or learn, for that matter? Like I would say that I haven't learnt the ins and outs of that world yet. But how do we go about? That was definitely the wrong word to use. I was going to say fast tracking that. That's not. I think streamlining it. So I think that the education system in schools is not designed to help the masses live a good life. I think it's.
But I don't think Continue. Like I hear what you're saying, right? And I know we've talked about this education system thing before, but I've got something to add to that. Okay. But I'll let you finish. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I heard you say then about learning the ropes, learning how the world works, learning how to make money, how money system works, right? How could we help more people learn that? Because I don't think it's designed. I don't think the schools do that.
No.
And I guess I'm looking as an ex-teacher. I've only got that to work off. Do you know what I mean? And I would love to get your thoughts.
I think that the school, the education system has always been an arm of the government. So when we needed smart people, the school system made smart people. Now we need dumb people. The school system makes dumb people, right? And that's economic, right? Because we don't need more smart people. We need more dumb people right now. So the school system will always, no one's coming to save you. You know what I mean? That's the bottom line. It's like it never has and never will. So until we sort of instill responsibility in people to actually educate themselves, you'll always be a civilian in the war of whoever's in power, you know? And I try to encourage people to not be civilians, like get involved in the battle, because there is a battle going on. It's between ideologies and billionaires and whoever, but the point is there is a battle going on, and there's a lot of civilians walking around out there who are just going to be a result of the government of the day. You know what I mean? So if the government of the day decided tomorrow that, for example, not to get too controversial on our first date, but, right now there's a massive argument over whether boys and girls are girls and boys and things like that. So, and there are people who are just victims of that. Would you agree? Like, there's young kids in the middle that are then going to be a product of whichever side of that argument wins. So they're like the civilian casualties in the war. Yeah. And so the goal is to really understand who's like what game is being played and where you sit in it.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I don't think I've got a clear picture on that, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
I feel like
it's obscured. It's by intention that way, right? Yeah. It's by design. So it's not easy, and that's why this podcast exists, because I love talking to politicians about this type of stuff and asking these questions, but I'm not trying to insult anyone either, right? Like I'm just asking the questions and saying, well, this is what it seems like. Like it seems like there's a massive industry coming through that's pushing a whole bunch of gender-affirming surgeries, and there's a whole bunch of economic reasons for kids to be gender dysphoric, is it? Sure. Where gender confused anyway.
Yeah.
So suddenly there's a big economic interest in this, and suddenly we have a massive spike in this condition, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what's going on here? You know, is it really that these kids just didn't, know how to communicate and didn't have anyone to talk to, or is there someone actually incentivizing this system? You know, it seems that way. So I think when you say about like the school system and being frustrated with these systems, I think that it would be tough to find it'd be tough to find a system that's actually, going to educate people on how to take power back from their government and how to not be a pawn in the system. I don't think there's anyone incentivizing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So then you've got kids. How many kids do you have?
Three
kids. And I assume they're all in school? Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you take off going back to make sure that they don't fall into the pawns of the system?
Yeah, we try to just have a lot of conversation. Look, it's probably not a popular thing to say either, but I'll say it, is that I look at what's going on the planet right now, Western society, and the biggest immediate solution to the problem that I can see, and this is going to be real controversial, is for people to stay married and have kids. Right. And keep families together. Housing crisis, right? when people get divorced, they take up more housing, right? So we minimize housing issues, shortages when parents stay together. The best education you could get on finance and life and living is probably sitting with mum and dad at the dinner table and having a conversation about that. It's statistically proven that, you know, fatherless households have a higher crime rate. So keeping families together should be incentivized.
Okay.
But it's actually not, right?
Yeah.
It's actually economically more beneficial to split up. There's no celebration of, you know, family days. There's plenty of other days to celebrate every other thing, but there's not really, even Father's Day and Mother's Day are being abolished.
Yeah.
All the traditional family days. So I'm a bit of a conservative in that regard. That doesn't mean that if you're a single mum that I don't like you or respect you. It doesn't mean that if you've got no dad, I don't care for you, you know. But we just have this massive family breakdown occurring in society right now. And we have, you know, youth crime out of control and things like that. Well, a lot of that stems from having no real, like my kids, I would pray that they would not go and do anything stupid because they respect us as parents, you know. So when you have that sort of breakdown in society, you then get a whole bunch of other sort of issues, right? But back to what I was saying before, if you actually look at these issues, they're incentivized. A lot of people make money out of it, right? So there's a lot of money in failed education. There's a lot of money in disrupted growth for children. There's a lot of money in divorces. There's a lot of money in split. It keeps people poor too, right? Like you split, you got a family with say $1 million of assets, you split it up, suddenly you've got a mortgage over here and a mortgage over there, and there's two new cars. There's no sort of consolidation of resources, right? Everyone's buying 2 meals, 2 Uber Eats instead of just cooking a family meal. So everyone stays broke and stays less powerful and then questions the authorities less and less and less. So it's very oppressive to destroy families, right? But that's what I see anyway. You know?
Interesting. So how do we keep families together then?
That's a relationship. Well, you know, I don't know. It's a tough. It's a tough question. I guess it's a rhetorical question. It's more of like I agree with you. So how was Kilimanjaro?
We're getting a little bit deep there, aren't we? Do we want to leave that one? All right. Kili.
Oh, that's all right. Tell us. Whatever. Let's just go. So tell us about. So you climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. When was that?
That was start of last year. Start of last year. Start of 2023. Mate was having his 30th birthday from Perth. I was in London at the time. Said, come over and we'll climb Kili. I was like, yep, let's do it. No experience whatsoever with high altitude stuff, and then just rocked up. And 8 days of hiking. It was sick. Met Mr. Lockie Gilbert there. I don't know if you know who that is. No, he was on Survivor twice and did The Bachelor as well.
Right, okay.
Met him there, and you don't have any phones or any communications on Kili. It's like no towers or anything. So we just had 8 days of bonding, which was amazing. Really, really good. And he told me all the Survivor stories, and then I made the application video at the top of the mountain, which was pretty sick. And then that's what sparked.
So how did you? Because there's been a million people ask me like, how do you get onto Survivor? And you must get it.
Yeah.
So how do you? Is it just about how do you stand out?
Well, for starters, I think having Lockie there helped. He was in my application video. He'd been on the show twice. So you've already got an in there. That definitely helps. But then you have to stand out. So the application video that you make, if you're wanting to get on a Survivor, has to be, look at me. And there's going to be hundreds of thousands of these applicants. Why does your application video stand out? Mine was at the top of a mountain where there's like a glacier right next to me. And I said, I'm going to win Survivor because I can climb this mountain. I wanted to do it with my budgie smugglers because that would definitely stand out, but it was so freaking cold that I couldn't get my stuff off. But But yeah, like Lockie did his base jumping. So he was like doing his application video and then he just jumps off a cliff.
Yeah, right.
So that for them is like, far out, this guy's going to make TV.
Yeah.
Like that's really interesting. So you just have to give them a reason as to why you would put eyes on their screens. That's the reason. And yeah, when I got through the next stage, they asked for a headshot and I did it with my shirt off because I've got Survivor on my chest. It says mum in pink ribbon. She had breast cancer and then Survivor. So I did it without my shirt so they could see that tattoo and they were like, oh, what's this? And it sparks interest and then build that emotional side of the backstory, I guess.
Yeah. How is your mum?
Mum's good.
Yeah.
8 years clear and clean from cancer, which is really good. That was a trying time. I'm not sure if you've ever experienced anyone close to you having breast cancer or any cancer for that matter. It was just tough, man. Seeing someone you love so much just going through chemotherapy and radiation. Like, it was just brutal, man.
Yeah.
And it obviously affects the person. Like mum was in so much pain and agony, but like everyone around you, your whole life just changes. It's such a long period of time as well. It's very difficult to stay optimistic and to stay positive in those moments when like it's just all really, really tough. My poor auntie at the moment, she's got cancer, it's terminal as well. So yeah, that's pretty tough. And like I can't imagine how my uncle feels, man. Like I'm obviously hurting for my auntie and our entire family there, but my uncle, man, like he's such a vibrant person. He's just so happy-go-lucky, always smiling, and I just can't imagine how he feels, man, all the time at the moment. It's brutal.
Well, the guy that I had, I did a podcast with the Giuseppe just recently, and his son has cancer in his leg, and he's 15 years old, and you just it's just so fucked.
It's so fucked, man.
You just can't believe how bad it is. Like, and everyone, I mean, I've been blessed in the sense that no one close to me has had it, but obviously we know people, but it's just such a awful thing. And it's just very common, I guess. Like so many people have been touched by it in some regards, and especially when it's young kids and stuff, you just it's just brutal. But yeah, anyway, I'm glad your mum's doing better. Like it's tough, you know.
Yeah, she's good, and like we spoke about before about how the tough moments can sort of
Positives,
shape you
yeah.
and look at positives. There was a time where mum had lost all her hair and we were sitting around a table and I'd been talking about wanting to travel, but like, you know, growing up in Perth, you don't really travel. Like sometimes you might go to Bali or something like that, but like I grew up, it was never big trips. And I always said, I want to go to Europe. She's like, she never really pushed it. She never really like encouraged it. Yeah. She never really jumped at it. And then I remember sitting around the table. I get goosebumps every time I like to say this.
I actually saw you get goosebumps.
Yeah, every time I remember that I can hear her words, man. She said, "Alex, like, I can never forgive myself if this happens to you tomorrow. So, like, you do what you want to do for the rest of your life. I remember she had these like brochures for Europe, and she went and got them and put them on the table in front of us, and she started looking at it with me. And I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks later, I booked my flights to Europe for about 6 months' time. And like my life from that moment has been so different. Sure. I was stuck in, well, I wasn't stuck, but I was in Perth. I was in a routine of just going to footy, going to study and going to work and things like that. And it was just like a circle. It was just going round and round and round. And it was like good. And I think that's important, routines and all that. But without that moment, I might not go to Europe. I might not move to London later. I might not travel to Mexico. I might then it's just completely different. And not that it would be worse. It's just different. Yeah. And that's very interesting to me that a moment like that can shape the rest of your life so drastically. And as much as I would never wish for anyone to go through what my mum went through, I feel like there's been positives that come out of it.
Yeah, and definitely. I think, that's the skill, isn't it, really? Trying to find those positives in these awful things. And like you say, it's that sliding doors moment that, it then pushed you on a different direction. And now obviously after Survivor, what's some of the like what was surprising about Survivor? Let's start with that. Like, what did you think of Survivor and it turned out to be something else? What was sort of different?
So obviously got some little tips from Lockie about what it was going to be like. And one of them was that there's a lot of waiting around time. Now, I'd got into meditation and like I was pretty comfortable in solitude. And over the last couple of years, I really developed a relationship with myself that I liked. Like I really felt that. And when he told me about that, I was like, okay, like, yeah, I can deal with some waiting times. Like that's cool. Like, no worries. I'll enjoy that. I'll be better than everyone else. They'll all be inside their own head, just like constantly going around and around and around. And that just wasn't the case, man. There was way more waiting around time than I thought there would be. Like TV is very like stop start. And when they're moving cameras, you're in silence for long, long periods of time. And what I didn't realize and what I wrote in one of my Instagram posts post-Survivor was that the amount of attention that is captured by our technologies these days is just crazy, man. Like I would sit there on the island for maybe 2 or 3 hours right at a time where we'd have to like be silent and just wait for the next thing to happen. And that just felt like eternity, man. Some days it just felt like so long. And I think learning to be, I think that
when you say sitting, are you like literally just sitting on a beach waiting for someone to say, right, we're ready to go? Or are you
so I'll give you some context. So if it's once you finish some strat chat in the morning, the cameras will pack up and they'll go to the challenge, and then you're in like a lockdown, which means that you're just doing some camp life, no talking, right? You're trying to get things going. Then you get into a van and you get transported to challenge, and you're blindfolded in this van for like it's an hour each time in the van to the challenges and back. So you see they walk off to the challenges. That's not the case. You actually get transported in a van. Then you're just you're in your own head, blindfolded in this van for an hour.
Are you restricted in movement though, or are you just blindfolded?
There's 12 people in a van.
So you could take it off, but like
there's a producer in the front, and they're yelling at you. They're treating you like children, essentially.
Right, yeah.
Right. Because essentially they need to capture.
Well, I guess what I'm worried about is like, you don't want it to also be traumatic in the sense that like, you're freaking out going, mate, where the fuck are we?
Nah, it's not like that. But it is like
keep your blindfolds on.
Yeah, and then you get to challenge, and then you're waiting in a tent while they're getting mic'd up. But I can't stress this enough. Like it's each time it's like 1 to 1.5 hours, and then sometimes before tribal council it could be like 2.5 hours where it's dark. You're sitting in a tiny little tent by yourself, waiting until they come, and you're doing that every single day.
Oh, because you got to be separated, right? So you can't be chatting with.
You're not chatting with anyone.
Yeah.
So it's not like you can just
talk shit.
No, you're just by yourself.
Wow.
And it's. I worked it out. Like on average, over the 39 days that I was there, on average, it would have been about maybe 5 hours a day just in silence waiting. That's not sleeping. It's like just doing nothing. And that's a long time every day to just be doing nothing. And I think that boredom, I definitely didn't expect that going into it. I thought, it's going to be like an experience. I'll be... Oh, man.
Does this breach your NDA with Survivor by saying this stuff?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I'm pretty sure. I think maybe leave the van stuff out, but I think everything else. Like,
yeah. Oh, okay.
I'm not sure about the van
stuff. Well, we'll wait for them to tell us.
Yeah, if they say so, it's not a problem though. I'm pretty sure, like, yeah.
Do you have much work with Survivor from Survivor? Like is there ongoing commitments and things, or that's it? They just cut and run.
That was it. Yeah. Literally, it got voted out, had the exit interviews on TV, and that was that. Like there is no, which I was a little bit surprised about. I mean, I'm hoping that it still opens doors down the line. Like I'd love to do some other things in TV, like hosting and things like that. Like I feel like I'm that sort of personality, and I would love that. But it was just sort of like. Done.
Thanks.
See you later.
And it's not paid, obviously.
You get like a little like inconvenience allowance, like $100 a day or something like that. You're out there. But it's not. Yeah. So going back full circle to the question of what was different that I didn't expect, it would probably be like how much
waiting,
but not even the waiting. Like if I'm transferring that to life, like how much time we spend just lost in thought or doing things that we're not even like conscious that we're doing, right? It's just we're doing it and we're on auto repeat, just constantly. But if we were to stop, if you took away the internet for 48 hours or for a week, what would the world be like? That to me would be very interesting because, I think we're just very captured at the moment. Very
well. I think that's why it's good to go on holidays and go away and manufacture that time. Like we went away last week and we basically didn't use our devices at all. Obviously, you've got phones and things, but you know. You can be industrious and you can get interested in things. We're not designed for it, right? For example, because I grew up without the internet, you know, so you would have a jigsaw puzzle, you would have a garage where you fix stuff or put stuff together. You would have spaces where you actually, a bit like apps, there was like spaces that you would go to do stuff, and you would have a lawn that needed attending, and you'd have goldfish that needed feeding or pets, or you filled your life with things. And I think now the problem is, even if you've got a young family member that has a birthday, it's almost, they don't really want for anything because it's all just apps and phone stuff, right? It's like they're into just phones. So you go, what do I get this kid? Some clothes? Well, they got clothes. What do I get? What else do I get them? I don't know. They're not into basketball. They're not into sports. They're not into, I don't know, just you end up just giving them a gift voucher, right? Yeah. So it's the world has definitely progressed in that regard, and I'm not sure it's for the better, but I love being able to busy myself. That's one of the things that the attributes of my previous pre-internet life that I've been able to bring into the future is just being able to, you know, fix stuff and use my hands and encourage the kids to build, like they build remote control cars. Oscar's got, I'll show you before you leave, but he's got these beautiful remote control cars, and he comes in here and he, you know, just assembles these kits, and they're only a couple of $100, but they'll keep him entertained for days and days, and then they break and you've got to buy parts on Amazon and stuff. It's healthy, you know. But you know, it definitely, that amount of time you need to practice. Did it get easier with the waiting?
No, it got harder. Yeah, it got harder and harder the more it went, because you're mixing it with, you know, not having any other, you know, the food and stuff, the loved ones. And then you're just sitting there and all you're thinking about is like how hungry you are. All you're thinking about is like your loved ones. I remember I think it was like day 32. I got letters. I bought, you had like an auction event and I bought the letters from home. And I read those letters and that was like, oh man, it filled my heart. Like that was better than any feed that I could ever imagine at that moment. And then we got to keep them, and every day before we go to bed, they were like tucked into the shelter, and I'd pull out my letter and I'd read it, and there's like a photo of my little baby nephew and May there, and you just like start bawling your eyes out again. And that's the only little touch of something from your outside life that you can to bring to here. And yeah, it was,
tell us about that, the emotion of it. Like, so how often were you breaking down? Were there times where you just felt like you could access this? Were you that close to breaking down that you could just touch the tears kind of thing?
Oh, the tears came frequently, man. There was one in day 10 that was really bad, and then the letters, that was day 30 or something. That one was just incredible. That feeling of emotion from those letters was, and as a collective as well, because we were all reading them, was just so emotional, man. And like you have your moment, you're reading them, and everyone's. It's a super beautiful moment, and then you go away and they ask you questions like to the camera privately, like you have your little confessionals and stuff. And I remember just breaking down again there, like reading parts of the letter again to myself and just bawling my eyes out, because you just miss it so much, man, like so much. And I definitely thought that, like, I knew I'd miss my family, I knew I'd miss May. But I thought that like the biggest problem that I'd have would be the food. Like I love my food. I eat a lot of food. So I thought that would be the biggest problem. But then getting there, like all I craved, man, was some love. Like all I wanted was someone just to hug me and tell me it'll be all right and just like hold me and scratch my head and like
connection, man.
Everything, man. It's absolutely everything. Relationships and your people. I heard a quote the other day. You know, the saying goes, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. But I can't remember who said it, but it was like, it's not about the destination or the journey, it's about the company you do it with. For me, like it just resonated so much.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah.
It really wouldn't matter where I get to and how I get there, as long as I'm going in a way that's like that's with people that I love, and that fill my heart. I guess that's probably the most important thing.
Yeah, well, it is a team sport. You know, life is a team sport. I think since coming back from Survivor, how's the fame? Like, I know it's not a massive fame, but like I went to the footy with you and there was people who recognise you. And how have you found it?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's not a massive fame. I think that Survivor has a sort of fan base where there's some real diehards and they love it, but it's not like, everyone's not recognising me down the street. It's like the perfect amount of fame, if I'm honest. Like maybe every couple of days someone's asking for a photo. It's nice and it doesn't get annoying.
Yeah.
But yeah, like and I'm getting a lot of attention from like old schoolmates and things like that. Just been like, oh, I can't believe you're on TV and things like that.
Yeah.
That's nice. Like I've enjoyed the attention, but it's also going to die. Like it's not going to last. And there'll be the odd person every year that pops their head up. But yeah, I wouldn't say it's interrupted the life drastically.
No, it's quite beautiful. I think.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Little kids come up and want a photo.
That is exactly. I went to bounce the other day, and it was school holidays, so it was like heaps of kids running around. And then this mum came up to me as we were leaving, and she was like, "Oh, Alex, I'm really sorry, my kids love you, and they were too shy to come and ask for a photo." I was like, "Get in here, like, come on, give me a hug, like, get a photo." So that's really nice. Like, I love all that, and I think that I got lucky in the sense that, well, not lucky, like I wouldn't put that down to luck, but I got portrayed as someone who's truth seeker, a good guy, like the kind-hearted fella, and I guess that being a part of TV, they can sometimes manipulate how you look. But yeah, I got seen as the good guy, I guess.
Is there anyone on the show that you're super mates with, or anyone that you're super not mates with?
Yeah, close with almost everyone. Like we've got a group chat WhatsApp, and like it's really nice. We all sort of like have shared the experience together, and we all understand it's a game. Like with anything that happens on the show is all just like game stuff. We get off and we're all having a beer and everything. There was Kelly. I don't know if you know anything about Kelly, but she was she's a psychologist that just doesn't understand humans at all. So
that's not uncommon.
Really?
I don't think so. Well, I've seen. Yeah. Well, you look at generally who applies to be a psychologist.
Yeah.
I won't say any more than that, but just just do some study on that. Yeah.
I'll tell you what happened though. She would have got on to the interview with the executive producer, started talking, and they would have been like, "You are perfect for this show."
Yeah.
Like immediately she would have got on because she was going to crack TV.
Yeah. Well, that's what it's about. At the end of the day, I was watching a review of a movie the other day, and the guy reviewing it said, you know what? Who wants to watch a movie about a whole bunch of people that just get along, right? So some of it's implausible, but you do need the drama. And if that's 100%. What she brought. Yeah, no, I didn't really I saw a little bit of her, but I didn't really understand what the friction was, Yeah.
Anyway, let's move from Kel.
I'll have to check it out, yeah. Survivor's done. I guess what's next?
Oh, it's a really good question, man. And I think I don't exactly have an answer for you, if I'm honest. I'm going to give you a short-term answer. The short-term answer is that I'm going back to Europe to spend some time with my partner's family. Her mum's getting married over there, and I'm looking to, I guess, enjoy my life. But then at the same time, I don't have this. I don't have this. This clarity of what my life looks like in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years time. And I think that's something that I'm looking for, if I'm honest. But then the idea of looking for it is potentially inhibiting my way of finding it. I don't know if that makes sense. But yeah.
How long have you and May been together?
Officially like just over a year. We met maybe 18, 19 months ago in Mexico, and then we started dating a little bit in Europe. But we moved to Bali together just over a year ago now, and head over heels. Like I think we spoke about keeping families together. I'm so convinced that this relationship will take work, but it is the right thing for me.
Right.
Like I know that every relationship is going to take work, but 3 or 4 years ago, 5 years ago, when I was with my previous partner, there was this part of me that just always felt, it'd just be easy to find a better woman or a new woman, right? Or, it's them the problem and not me. And I think so differently now. Like now, if May and I have a problem, I try and find what it is that about me that's maybe reflecting this problem, right? And I try to work on that. And I'll always trust my own intuition, my own wisdom to try and to make the right decisions in a relationship. But I don't have that feeling now of like, oh, I'll just find someone else. I'm really invested now in this relationship, and I think that's really, I think it's wonderful. Yeah.
So what was the rationale then of you? Obviously, you don't go and just start an OnlyFans account after you've come off the back of being, you know, your personality, your media presence, your who you are, and obviously you're from a pretty clean cut background. I mean, you look at your Instagram profile from the start. You know, you're just a good clean cut Aussie kid. You know, just growing, and then so suddenly, how do you make the transition to make this? What's the rationale behind starting an OnlyFans account?
I think the rationale came. I think the motive was the money, the security. Like I said to you before, I was living off savings, man, for 6 months, pretty much after Survivor. I'd moved away from teaching prior to Survivor and had started an OnlyFans agency. So I was working in tandem with a guy that I knew in Bali we created an OnlyFans agency where we'd have models that we would assist them in their marketing, bringing new subs in and chatting for the clients to optimize the accounts. So I knew the platform really well. I understood how it all worked, and I knew what would make good money if I was to ever do it myself. And then Survivor happened, and then I moved to the Gold Coast after the Nepal trip, and I went to like Mexico and stuff. I moved to the Gold Coast because I wanted the exposure of Survivor. I wanted to be here for it, but I hadn't really lived in Australia for 2 or 3 years before that.
Sure.
So that I came here back for that. When we got to the Gold Coast, I moved into a house with some creator couples who were doing OnlyFans. There was a couple, right? I've actually just moved out of their house today because I'm going back to Perth, but I just quizzed them on everything. Like I just wanted to know everything about their life. I wanted to know about like how they did it compared to how I was doing it with the agency before. And essentially they have traveled around Australia in a giant car, doing the OnlyFans together, and they've made an absolute shit ton of money living a wicked lifestyle. And at the point that I was at, where I was living off savings and I just didn't want to go back to teaching, and I knew how it would all work and how I could easily make it. I post one tweet onto Twitter with it all hidden so no one can really see it. And I was like, and I had, 100 subs come in at $30, $30 a pop. I was like, oh, okay, this might actually like just steady the tides a little bit, like give me a little bit of security. And then it just started working really well. Started selling nudes for like $100 each. And I was just like, all right, well, this is going to give me the opportunity to get my time. Like, cause I was at that point, I was like grinding away. I was trying to find new, like May, so my partner had a social media business in the Netherlands where she has clients where she manages the Instagrams, the TikToks, everything like that. So I was like, all right, I don't want to do teaching. Let's try that. So I was trying to find clients for that in the Gold Coast. So I was trying to offer free videos to build a portfolio. And I was just doing lots and lots of hours without getting any traction. Sure. And that feeling, it's hard. And I don't think it's bad. It's not like you should avoid that feeling. I don't want people to necessarily avoid that hard work or that and just try and look for the easier option. But I just couldn't get going. And I had this idea that I wanted to, make money now, get the security, and then find my passion, I guess. And while the OnlyFans is working really, really well for me at the moment, it's certainly not something that I want to do forever. But it's given me the ability to comfortably get back to Europe to see my partner's mum get married, travel around Europe and enjoy myself doing that, look for new opportunities along the way. Yeah. And it hasn't restricted me to going back into a school and teaching 9 to 5. It may potentially restrict me from ever going back there again, but that was the risk that I was willing to take. I sort of...
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. I mean, look, anytime you have to make a compromise, it's, you've got to weigh it up. How does it sit with you? Like, how do you feel about it?
Right now, I feel really, really good, honestly. I starting it, I was really concerned about not necessarily like what other teachers would think about me, what other people, acquaintances would think about me, but I did consider what my family and what my close friends would think about it. And that was a risk. Like there's absolutely a risk there. And I had to make the decision that whatever happens here, if people thought really badly of it, then I was going to have to live with that. And I could try and salvage from there if I wanted to stop it, if I wanted to change. But once I had told my close friends and had their support and had them go like, look, man, like we love you for who you are, not for what you're doing. And like that was the most important thing. And I spoke about it before, like I said, it's not about the journey or the destination, it's about the company. And after having told the majority of people in my life now that I'm doing this and still having their love and support, it does make me feel better. It makes me feel fine. And yeah, while I certainly don't think it's my highest calling, it doesn't sit badly with me, and I can comfortably say that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's not like I don't feel like I'm hiding.
Of it, I mean, why is it in any way? If you were to think of one reason why it is a bad thing, what would be one reason it is a bad thing?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah. Would you have? Do you have an opinion?
No,
on
but
this?
it's just like I think it goes back to what we were saying before about like why the world is the way it is. You know, like we have an environment where you can hack it. You know, you can hack again. It's kind of like your Bitcoin, right? Like you're able to hack this money making thing. That, well, other people can't do it either. There's also that, you know, like you've got a gift in the sense that you're a handsome lad and, you know, you work well, but, you know, like, yeah, it's tough, you know, like how do we keep families together and stuff like that where this is now a modern day way of making income, you know what I mean? And it's like, is there a limit we put on it or is it just like that's the way it is? I don't know.
So it sounds like you're implying there that by doing this gives May. Oh, maybe I heard this wrong. So correct me. But it gives May and I a greater chance of falling apart by doing it.
No, I'm thinking more along the lines of like, well, if I maybe like I guess if we say just like what would be, like what would be would it be beneficial for a relationship or harmful to a relationship?
Doing OnlyFans?
Yeah.
I think that's amazing. That's right. Subjective view on that. I think that depends because May and I didn't just irrationally make that decision without talking to May. We had spoken about it and we had both seen an opportunity where we were both comfortable. To give a little context, May and I probably aren't your typical sort of relationship.
I understand, yeah. So you're not a traditional couple, but that's what we were talking about before is that, and hey man, like this is not a judgment. This is just like the way it is, right? Like the world has changed. And so when I look at it and I think, well, the world needs more standard nuclear families. We don't have more of them. You know what I mean? We have less of them and we have less people. I mean.
So can you have all of the perks of that traditional family, right, while also stepping out and exploring?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, look, I know it wouldn't work in my marriage.
No.
You know? I know that it wouldn't work with my wife and my scenario, but I mean, you'd have to just come with the data. It's like I said the other day to my son. I said, mate, like, you know, in God I trust, but everyone else needs to bring statistics, man.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I don't really know.
Yeah.
But this is the path that we're trotting, right? So it's like, I don't know, man. Like, and that's what you'd have to work out. See, like, I think that in life, you know, it's more about what you don't do. Like it's more about, I think as Muhammad Ali actually said that it's more about the things it's not about the things you do, it's about the things you don't do. you know?
Yeah. What do you mean by this? Though?
Well, I think in that terms, like he didn't party, he didn't do drugs, he didn't go out and womanize, he didn't, indulge,
The central part of your training, is it running, is it sparring, or?
Central part is dodging the nightclubs and the parties and the girls. You want the truth? And being in the bed by yourself at 9 o'clock at night. And if you can get by that, you'll make it. That's the truth. Now, I'll tell you the truth. You talk all that running and hitting the bags and jogging and vitamins you want.
Mr. Ali.
Dodging ladies is the main thing.
Muhammad?
Especially when you're pretty like me.
And sometimes I look at it and I think, well, historically, I don't know, like how that would work.
Could you argue that I'm going to use an example, just a random two people, like
yeah.
Could you argue that they, in contrast to May and I, don't have the conversations that potentially we have? Because that's something that I see in our relationship that I'm really proud of.
Sure.
Is we're different. We might be a little untraditional, but we are very aware of how each other are feeling at any given time. We're very conscious of that, and we're very accepting of both. We don't just go off and...
Yeah. And look, there's definitely I think what you're talking about is the exceptions rather than the rule.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And I think that's my life has been an exception from the norm for most of it.
Yeah.
So I kind of lean into that a little bit. And I don't think it's a bad thing. You asked me before though, you said, how do I feel about the OnlyFans? And I would like to ask you how you feel. And there's no... I don't want you to avoid anything here.
Yeah,
I don't want you to
I'm not going to
just butter me or
No, man.
I want you to tell
honestly,
me how you feel about, well, one, me doing the OnlyFans, and two, about May and I not being the sort of traditional couple. How does that sit with you?
I think that like your friends, I care about you. So I hope and pray nothing but the best for you, and that's honestly, I don't know you that well, but I like you, man. You're a good guy and I want you to succeed. But also the biggest problem we have is everyone thinks they're the exception and then they work out that they're the rule. You know what I mean? And I think that could happen to you, or it could happen that you're you're not. It could be that, I feel that I'm the exception. You know what I mean? I grew up in a suburb where all of my mates are no longer with us for one reason or another. And I got out of this shitty suburb and made something of myself, and I've got a beautiful family, and and I was able to listen to the right people and avoid the bad things. And I'm sure to some degree, everyone's running their own contest. Everyone's running their own race, and in their own head, there's they are in their own universe. You know what I mean? I think everyone must feel that the world is viewed from their vantage. I think that there's nothing, the only person that can prove anyone anything is you, in the same way I've taken risks in my life where everyone has said that's a bad idea. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but I know it's not. I know it's going to work. And I've been right, you know. There's also been times when I've not been right. Yeah. So I got mate, I think honestly, if I was growing up in today's era, I got to also understand I wouldn't be today's man. I wouldn't be the man I am if I grew up now, even just Snapchat and things like that. I can't even have that on my phone. Yeah. There's too much ass and titty on there, mate. I can't even, I actually wish that Instagram could set it up so I could not have this shit when I hit the time I take from hitting the magnifying glass button, to the typing in what I need, I try to make that as short as possible because I know it's just going to be flooded with G-strings and boobs. So, and I don't need that in my life, man. I'm trying to, I also understand that I'm just a red-blooded man, and I have the reptilian monster in me wants to just jump on that, you know what I mean? And I think that the greatest thing a man can do is control his urges, and that's the difference between man and animal. And I think that the thing that makes you successful as a man is actually to be able to control that part of yourself, Yeah. And it's the daily battle, Every guy has a battle with it. Some of you have the battle that it's actually the reverse polarity. Most guys are trying to get laid. Yeah. You're one of the few guys that would actually like attract women to want to lay you. Do you know what I mean? Like, and so that puts you in a very high limited percentage as well, right? Yeah. Like most men are out there walking around, driving around, looking at girls going, making grunting noises, but don't have a fucking thing they can do about it. Right. You see, you're in a different category. So, you know, with great power comes great responsibility, man.
Dude, quoting Ben Parker.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that was actually Uncle Ben, I think.
Yeah, Uncle Ben, sorry. Yeah, that's what it was, Ben Parker, wasn't it?
Oh, Ben Parker, sorry, yeah.
Uncle Ben.
You were right. So, man, I don't know. Shit, I'm just like you. I don't have all the answers. But I know that, look, it couldn't work for me, man, because I don't know. Like, I would just be I think it's also a create, right? So it's an avenue of bandwidth. It's like, so if I knew that there was potentially other women that I could pursue or other scenarios I could pursue, then I would have to occupy a certain amount of my life with doing that. So it's like another hobby that I've got that I have to, you know, now there's 5 hours a week in my life going towards that. So,
but what if that's not a negative though?
It might
like,
not be,
because you have hobbies, I'm sure, of other things that occupy 5 hours, and
and they're not as fun as that, I'm sure. Okay, let me give you some scenarios, right? So let's say that, and let's just stick to OnlyFans. Let's say that if you're totally okay with doing something, then do it. You know what I mean? And at the end, like you could even go to a restaurant and order a steak, mate, and people would be not okay with it, right? So, so you can't live to please everyone else,
right? That's a very good point.
So it doesn't matter. Like it actually only matters if you actually have a moral issue with it, truly.
Yeah. And I think you asked me that before, and I genuinely said no. Like I don't have an issue with it.
And I think that. Yeah, man. Like,
I think that there's been parts of it that's been uncomfortable, like really uncomfortable, if I'm honest. But like I said before, like I think that growth comes from those moments. And whether it's a lesson that I intend to learn or not intend to learn, I'm sure there is a lesson that's there or coming. And I wanted to ask you before, this kind of just jumped here a little bit, but I wanted to ask you before, like more of a philosophical question about like how you see the world and how it operates in terms of like, do you think it's deterministic? Do you think that we have a sort of set path and then, or do you think it's random? Or do you think that we choose?
I believe in choosing my path. Mm-hmm. You know, I believe I'm at cause over what happens. I believe in taking responsibility for my life, but I also, and I'm not a religious person. But I'm a spiritual person in the sense I think that I'm constantly brought back to two things. One is that there is a right and a wrong, and there is a path that leads to happiness and a path that leads to pain. Mm-hmm. I do believe in that. I believe there's a way to live. And I believe it's all natural. And I think the more you go away from nature, the more you hurt. That's just my take on it.
That's an interesting thought.
And the other thing is just the second part of that is just that the universal size and the amazing things in the universe. That just I do believe in a creator of some sort or a God, if you will, you know, or some sort of. And I do believe that my little brain isn't even equipped to understand it. Yeah. So I do believe in the vastness of all that. But as far as that part two of it that I really can't figure out, but part one of it is living a certain way to enhance my happiness and joy, I think it's just simplistic, you know. It's just it's also trusting those messages that you get from yourself that say, I wouldn't do that shit, you know. Or, hey, that's probably not a good idea, or hey, and just like trusting those messages that you get.
Yeah.
You know, I believe that the more I stick to just living sort of in this very simple sort of way, the happier I've become, you know. You know, the grief I'm going to have when my parents pass away is going to be offset by the children that I have, and, you know, and they're going to be supporting me, and I'm going to, you know what I mean? And this whole sort of,
it's beautiful.
Sort of, I don't know what you call it. Yeah. But like, I just find that's what I've discovered over the last 5 years, and I'm calmer, and I'm more comfortable, and I don't know, happy, you know. But it isn't easy to find, and I don't think that we're also designed to. I think we're also designed to search, because you can't just sit there with a priest or a mentor or a book and learn life. Life is, you know, life is a practical
by
exercise.
experience. Yeah.
So things that happen to you over the course of the journey shape your experiences. And I know that when I talk to my children about stuff, it's like I'm equipped to be a father because I've done so much dumb shit.
Yeah.
And I'm also mindful that they can't just accept everything I say.
Yeah.
They've got to have their own dumb shit period. And I'm just that's just my viewpoint on it all, you know. But I definitely meet happy people who haven't chosen to live the way I live.
Yeah.
You know, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
You know.
I think I was coming into this with a part of myself saying, being a little hesitant about the OnlyFans thing, and because I thought I might affect.
I'm subscribing as we speak, mate. What are you talking about?
I thought it might affect how you perceive me, but I think what I really appreciate about you is you've got this view of you just want to understand. You just want to help other people understand, and you want to understand yourself, and you're very curious about the world and helping other people. And I think that, I think looking at that would be more important than me.
So you judged me. I didn't judge you.
No, 100%. No, but you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And that's an ego thing, you know. I want him to like me. I want him to, you know, not think bad thoughts about me. But that's ridiculous,
Thanks, man.
Like I am me, and I've done some dumb shit as well.
Yeah,
I probably am still doing dumb shit, but like I'm learning, man. And I think that the fact that I'm even having this conversation is like it makes me feel like I'm on the right path. Do you know what I mean? You said before about the last few years you've felt, I don't know exactly the words you said, but like more clarity or calmer, I think you used. What was the change? Like, what moment can you put it back to where you realize like, oh, this is the path, here it is?
I think it's not just one thing. It happens really gradually.
Yeah, you're right.
It happens really gradually.
Is there some moments then maybe? That you can
but I think what it is living in that direction, right? So it's a combination of a lot of things. There's certain parts of life that can't be avoided, right? For example, you are in a physical body and it needs to be happy. It needs to be healthy, right? So you are affected by your body.
Yeah.
So one is to look after your body, right? I think that for me as well, I eat better. I don't drink as much. And, you know, I think physically it's a big deal to be physically healthy.
Yeah.
Mentally healthy, you need to be surrounded by people who aren't trying to undermine you, people who aren't messing with you, people who aren't who are calm and responsible.
Yeah.
And that makes a massive difference. And you also need to, you know, just generally take steps to improve yourself, learn, and take responsibility. The other thing is to actually have a purpose, which is the thing that most people miss, right? Because, like I said about for me, I don't really know what other greater purpose is. Like everyone's running around looking for a purpose, and I just think, but the purpose that you have genetically programmed into you is to, and I know again, I hear myself say this, and I know people are going to just say, "Fuck, this guy's an idiot," but I don't know. I just think that genetically we are to build societies and make sure that we work together as a community. And whether that be, okay, if you don't want to have kids, don't have kids, but be part of the community, be part of helping everyone. And, you know, there is no greater joy than helping someone else. So there's just nothing in the world beats having someone say, you know, you really helped me and I'm so appreciative of what you did for me, or thank you, you know. And we live in this social media sort of world. It's just so narcissistic, and we get rewarded for it. And I think probably some of the internal battle that you might even have about the OnlyFans is not so much about being nude or being paid to show skin. It's more about like, what product is this? Yeah. That's the part I have a problem with it, to be honest. It's more like, even when I'm looking at girls' asses on Instagram with 1 million followers, I'm like, but what are you making for the world? And because you can artificially, if you like, inspire a dopamine response in me by me being attracted to this image, the only reason I'm getting that response is because if I actually saw a girl's butt in real life, it would mean she's accepting me as a sexual partner, and that feels good. But now it's all artificial, right? So now we're sort of seeing it online, and it's all artificial, but it's still getting that artificial. It's a hack. It's another hack. And so I wonder, like, if I could create that response in others, would I be using it, or would I be withholding it? Or if I could create that response in others another way, would I prefer to do it that way or another? You know what I mean? So these are the sort of challenges that have never been asked in all of humanity. It's only happened in the last X number of years where we've even got this ability, probably the last 20 years really, where you could even take a photo of your ass. So, you know, welcome to the new world. I don't know. We're all trying to navigate our way through it. But I know for me personally, man, like, I just have sort of just tried to take responsibility, build my environment around me. And as I've become more and more cause over what happens to me, I've just felt better, you know? I'm
going to play devil's advocate for just a moment here.
Do it.
It's obviously very different, especially to your lifestyle, this whole OnlyFans thing. But you could you argue that, like, let's say, I think you mentioned before how purpose, which everyone misses, your purpose and potentially what we're all here for is to build community, build society that work together and, you know, coexist in a healthy way. Let's say somebody had a hiking or adventure sort of passion, and then they built a community where they got other people into hiking and adventure, and they're going, all these hikes and adventures, and everyone's like building community and everyone's loving it, and it's creating positive vibes in that scenario. I can already hear what you're saying. No, imagine is there a world where you can create an online community around this space? Like, I'm not gonna lie, I've met some incredible people in this space that are actually like living really happily, that are doing fun things together. And I don't want to link it exactly to the nature and adventure thing, because I actually think that, like, you're right. I think that they're being out in nature it's super important. And I think that you miss that doing this. But is there a way that you can build a community around that? Or
what are you talking about exactly? Like, are you talking about OnlyFans, or are you talking about
potentially?
Right. So, yeah, I think that,
like, can you create that positive spiral you
can do anything, right? Like, I think that, because the other thing I was thinking, you've had the best chance to work all this out because you've done the experiment of being on an island.
Yeah.
Like, so what I'm trying to say is that, like, I think your purpose is to help others. So when you're stripped back of everything and survival is a real factor, the first thing is to survive as a group and try to survive. So now we're at the point where survival's not really an issue.
So so when you say help others now, if it's not to survive, what are we helping others do?
Well, that's the question, right? So providing I think just helping others. So when you we can just leave it at
help
that.
others what though?
So when we look at what people need, right? So they need joy, they need happiness, they need fitness, everyone's going to have shortfalls in their life. So helping with that. So then that's where you go back to your question before about OnlyFans is, does that actually help others? Does it actually do good? Does it actually, and this is not a statement, this is a question, you know? So like, that's why I think like, let's say I'm I mean, look, you can be a good person to other people any way you like, right? So I think the question becomes like, are you helping or are you hindering? You know, and that's a ethical question. That's something you have to answer for yourself. You know, I think that I don't see you hurting me. You don't hurting anyone. Like as far as I can tell.
Am I hindering anyone?
I don't know. Are you?
I don't know. How?
I mean, you know, and then you've got to see, ethics is a personal assessment of one's morality, right? So it's a personal judgment of yourself, your ethics. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to answer to anyone either, right? And you don't even have to you don't have to prove anything to anyone. Like there would be people again that have an ethics level where they would say that me driving the car that I've got out there is unethical because it's a polluter and it's this, that, and the other. So we can spend our whole life getting caught up in this shit. And the other thing is that we're trying to survive, right? So there are compromises that will be made along the way. So let's say if OnlyFans is the issue we're discussing, I don't think that it's actually the best thing for the world, no. But I also don't think that drinking alcohol is the best thing for the world. I also don't think that, you know, I don't think a lot of things are the best things for the world. But do we live our whole lives just trying to do the best things for the world, or do we dance with the devil a bit? You know, do we touch the flames? Do we, you know, do we test? And do we go through a phase as well where maybe that we feel differently, you know? Yeah. And I think when you asked me before about what's changed in my life, I just think I'm older.
Yeah.
You know, I'm 46 years old, man. It's like, just don't feel the same way I did about certain stuff. Yeah. I just love a good night's sleep, and I love.
Well, I don't think that's the age thing because I fucking love. I've shifted over the last 4 to 5 years, and my family will be the first to say like I'm a different person to who I was when I was 18, 20, man.
And that's great.
And it is great because I used to just drink every weekend. I used to do so many drugs in London, and I think you speak about phases. I think it's a necessary phase. Like I had that time, I did the dumb shit, and then I realized now that waking up on any given day, Monday or a Sunday or whatever day it is, I love that feeling. I love feeling good.
Yeah.
And you mentioned before, this was off podcast, about self-sabotage, right? And how we make these decisions that just don't help us in the long run, and we don't even realize that we're doing it. I look back at the years that I had in London of partying and doing cocaine every fucking weekend, and I just think, how was I that? How did I do that? How did I make that decision? And I just can't grasp it now. Like I will still have a bit of fun with psychedelics and things like that, which I'm interested to know your thoughts on in a minute. But I just can't look back at the person that I was there and not see a self-sabotaging person that, just ruined his life, like was ruining his life at the time.
But what were you afraid of? Like what? Why?
Why was I doing it?
Yeah, like what are you not confronting when you
in that moment?
In that moment.
Oh, that's a good question.
How old were you?
I moved to London. So there was this part of me that moved to London to experiment. I wanted to get out of my bubble in Perth and to just, start a whole new life, try a new life and to see what else there was out there apart from my own family's ideologies and everything back at home. And part of that in my head before I moved was like, I'm going to experiment with drugs. I want to try drugs. I want to, see how many girls I can go and sleep with, things like that. And I think that
these are all noble pursuits, by the way.
Oh God. So the question that you asked was, because I'll come back to the question, what was I running from? What was I guess I don't know the answer to that question. What was I running from? Especially not in the time. I just wanted to new experiences. I wanted to see.
Maybe you're just running from Perth. And I wasn't trying to say that you necessarily were running from, but I think we also live in a certain way where, and the way I parent is I try to be a little bit different in my parenting because I don't want my kids to hit 18 and lose their minds, and I don't want this whole wave of freedom to hit them. I like to give them freedom now so they can make some dumb decisions and expose themselves to their own stupidity early. Because that's how I grew up. And to be honest, if you're going to ask me about drugs and stuff, I've never done one. Never done a drug in my life.
Really?
No, just alcohol.
Yeah.
So, I think that, and that's just because I didn't, well, there was a lot of actually reasons why, but the truth is that I never felt like it was really that rebellious because I never felt like I was stopped from doing it in the first place.
Yeah, okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. And my parents were very relaxed about me I could have conversations about drugs with my parents.
Yeah,
and,
so it was completely different for me. Like drugs were just taboo and avoid drugs, stay away from drugs. And maybe that did spike the...
maybe it did, maybe it didn't. But the other thing I think it's foolish to also pin every action we make to something that happened to us and try and analyze our entire existence according to things we experienced as a child or link it to our parents or this or that. We do have free will, and I think we have free will. We can do whatever the fuck we want, but I know that like when other kids in my school were starting to do drugs, I'd come home and say, oh, so and so was doing drugs, and my mum would say, oh, well, da 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 da, and and I don't think there was any. And I actually did smoke weed. I did smoke weed in high school.
Do you know if your parents took drugs? No.
They've never smoked drugs. Definitely never done drugs. I've never seen my parents drunk. And
well, what I will say about drugs is quickly on psychedelics is I truly believe that anyone who doesn't, if you weren't to experience a psychedelic trip once in your life, I think you've missed something profound in this world. I've had a few experiences with them, and each time I've developed more of a curiosity about space and the universe, about my own awareness and myself inside. It's hard to contextualize. Obviously now but when you're in these experiences, it can be really interesting, really interesting. And I think that there's something that, if done in a safe space with correct people or safe people, it's something that I would recommend to at least everyone once in their life.
And I get that. I've spoken to friends who have done it and they've said exactly the same thing. And I don't know, who knows? Maybe one day I will.
Yeah, maybe.
It's hard when it's hard when things are good to go and try and mess with them.
Yeah, I get that.
Also that as well.
I do get that. I really do. Yeah. It is a risk. There's always a risk involved with things that can distort your reality, right? But I think if you do it correctly and you can experience something that does open doors, things like that, I think I would recommend it's a risk that is taken.
Sure. I think, I guess as you were talking, I was wondering if that's a particularly modern Western viewpoint because, you've been in Mexico and places like that. Is there been, or, other countries, is there any other viewpoints on death that you've come across?
Yeah, I don't think it's certainly not a modern, certainly not a Western sort of idea. Obviously in Mexico, they celebrate the Day of the Dead festival. So they see death as like, they see it doesn't end. Like you still connect with your ancestors and you still you feel them there. I don't exactly know a lot about it. I think Buddhism as well. I've spent a bit of time through Nepal and some of the Eastern philosophies as well. See, more of like a timeless sort of thing. Yeah, I really don't know enough about it, but I guess what I'm getting at is that I feel like I have a different sort of perspective on death than the people we usually interact with
from the psychedelics.
Yeah, from psychedelics. Yeah, most likely from psychedelics.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm also a big fan. Not a fan. I'm a big advocate for Sam Harris, who has similar views as well. He believes in like non-dualism, where you're sort of like connected with the universe, everything inside the universe, the creator, the creation. It's all just happening. And I think the reason I asked you about the deterministic or the randomness, that was one that
right. I have to check it out.
Sam Harris? Do you know anything about Sam Harris? Yeah, he's interesting. I'd be very interested to know your thoughts on some of his stuff that he's I first landed across him. I was getting into meditation, and a guy suggested his app, Waking Up, and
is that what it's called?
It's called Waking Up. It's called App. Yeah, and I started using it, and I really loved it. But it was like £120 for the year or something like that at the time. I was living in London, and I just
it's a fair bit.
Yeah, it was a fair bit for a meditation app, and I was just like, I can't afford this right now. Like, it's just not a priority at all.
Yeah.
And I said to my mate that recommended it, I said, look, I'm loving it, but I'm not spending £120. My free trial's coming to an end. And he's like, dude, just email them, say you'd like an upgrade, and they'll do it for you. I was like, oh, okay. So I emailed him, and like 2 or 3 hours later, I had a full year membership.
Wow.
For the app. And his philosophy is that this information or this knowledge is just good for the world, and he wants it out there, and therefore he doesn't need the money. If you would like to pay eventually, or you're comfortable to pay, please do. I got a free year, man, and then at the end of the year, it had changed my life so much that I was like, I'll buy the lifetime subscription. I paid like $600, because it was just, I used it every day. And the way that he teaches makes it easy to understand, and it's it helped me with developing that relationship with myself that I think is so important. You know, you spoke before about like you're a people's person, you don't like being by yourself. Well, I think that being by yourself is super important. Taking time to be in your own thoughts helps you understand yourself better, which then helps you understand how to relate to other people. And I credit a lot of that to Sam Harris. And he obviously spoke a lot about psychedelics as well. That was how I sort of connected the two.
No, that's cool. I'll check it out. Is there more of that sort of learning in your future? I guess, like, are you planning to put time aside, or is that one of your goals?
Yeah, 100%. I think that the inner journey is a lifelong thing. And I've been doing the meditation side of things and the theory side on that app for maybe 2 or 3 years, but it's something that I want to implement in my life moving forward. I've flirted with the idea of packing everything up and doing the whole monk temple thing for a month or two, seeing how that feels, and just like disconnecting from the world and just being by myself. I think I got some experience of that with Survivor, but you're also playing a game at that point.
Sure.
So it's not really like, But I'm currently reading, I think Like a Monk, I think it's called, by Jay Shetty, which I'm finding some insights from. I'm enjoying that. So I see value in taking long solitude time to reflect. I really do.
Do you have does May have a similar approach to living? Is she on that same page?
Yeah. So May's become more curious about like the meditation since we've been dating. Obviously, I've sort of not pushed onto her, but she's seen me do it and therefore has become interested. What I've noticed about May in the last year is the reaction time to anything has drastically slowed. So when we first met, there was lots of like reactions and and she'll just say something that might pop into her head straight away. And now speaking with May, it's much more, I hear a much greater level of clarity in what she's saying, because she's just taking a split second longer to react to whatever it is that's going on. It might be someone else in our friend circle that's, reacted emotionally, and she will take a moment to like stop and breathe. And I think that has come from this side of the The meditation.
I think it's also funny, isn't it, when you like a lot of people expect a reaction and give a reaction just when, often the answer is, I don't know. Yeah. We just were so programmed to give a response.
Because we don't want to look silly. We don't want to.
Exactly. Yeah. And you'd know that from teaching, right? Yeah. It's like, kids are just so programmed to spit out a response or to look like they're, like they know what they're doing or.
Yeah. So there, what you spoke about and how the kids will just say anything straight away, that training, or not training, but teaching.
Programming,
teaching that to children, I think should be the number one priority. Yeah. I think teaching someone to.
Oh, you mean to have a go process, you mean? Or
what do you mean?
Sorry, explain.
I think I feel a sort of sense a little bit inside me that a part of my purpose is helping the younger generations to come understand their own thought processes, understand what happens what's going on in their mind, and then be able to slow that reaction time down to then actually give feedback or answers or interject with things that they believe and that are true and that they value, rather than just a quick response that actually doesn't get anything.
Doesn't. Yeah, I mean, what years were you teaching?
I was teaching like years 7 to 12, so high school kids.
And what were you teaching?
Math.
And how did you, what problems did you run into? Aside from the general basic literacy.
Can you ask me again what you mean by what problems did I run into?
Well, what was it like? What did you struggle with? Why did you not like it?
Why did I not like it? I didn't like it because I would walk into a classroom and I would feel like what I was teaching them was invaluable to their life. And they felt that. And there was this intuition from everyone that what was actually being taught was not going to be used in their life moving forward. Now, that's a majority, right? There would be somebody in that classroom or classrooms that would use the Pythagoras theorem, that would use bearings, right, in their future. And don't get me wrong, there would be somebody. But for the majority, for the 98% of those students that would walk in that classroom knew, and they're right, that they weren't going to use that shit. And for me, trying to teach that, I had this awareness. I was just like, why am I doing this, man? Like 98% of these people it's just going to be wasted time. And that affects me then teaching, because I'm like, fuck this. So like, I think that's
Was that a public school?
Yeah. Yeah. But I don't think it would have mattered. Like, yeah, I truly think that we need it's not what we needed, because you said before the world needs dumb people right now, which is made me think a lot of that actually. So I'm going to reflect on that later.
When I say needs, I mean the economy needs dumb people, not the world. But that's what they're trying to produce, right?
Okay.
When we had to go to war, they needed strong people. So they filled the schools with canteens and tuck shops and made sure every kid was fed well to make them big and strong.
I guess what I'm trying to say is what I think the world needs is a completely different thing to what is taught in schools. And that's what that's why I find it so hard why I just couldn't get back in a classroom anymore, man.
Yeah.
But I would love to get to a point where I can teach what I truly think is valuable to the younger generation, to teenagers, to adults. Like and part of that is,
Have you considered teaching overseas? Like, I know I have a cousin who teaches in Vietnam, and he said that the reason he teaches there is because he loves teaching. So there's actually, because the students there are so happy and so grateful that they have an opportunity to learn.
That's made me think. Yeah, when you said overseas, I mean, I thought, I taught in London, but that's just completely different. Like that's not, those kids aren't grateful. But yeah, it's teaching at a school in like Vietnam or Bali or something like that. Like you're right.
Where these students are just so desperate to learn.
Yeah, and that would change everything, man. Like if I walk into that classroom then and the kids are, excited to learn, they're ready to learn, they're grateful. Oh man, that changes everything. Yeah. That changes the complete perspective on teaching.
And
100%.
It's sad because I look at all that Pythagoras theorem and all the sciences and physics that I learned, which I never used, but I loved it because I actually think that's why I do have a spiritual belief.
Math,
because,
the language of the
world.
It's
just the language of the gods. Like I just can't, like you look at the pyramids and how they're lined up and things like that. You're just like, mate, what is going on? But it is, it's that the fact that there is a code to this sort of planet, and there's a code to this. There's like a, and I think that to me is like, I had a really good class and I won the lottery, I guess, I call it the public school lottery, where you get a good teacher, you get a good bunch of classmates, and you have a good experience. It's getting fewer and further between now, unfortunately. But I know my kids, when they went through school, it'd be like, who have you got? Oh, damn, you didn't win the lottery, mate. Like, but my other kid would say, oh, I got so-and-so. And you'd be like, oh, awesome, you've got a great teacher, which is also another major flaw with the institution. It shouldn't be a situation of getting lucky when you go to school. You should have a standard result. Like, it should be a standardized expectation, but unfortunately there's not, we had some teachers that rock up in tracksuits, like some teachers that wear suits. I mean, so I think there needs to be a standard that is held by society. But back to what I was saying, like I love maths and sciences, I thought they're beautiful. Yeah.
Well, that's one way to look at it, I guess. And that's a really positive way of looking at it. I guess if everyone viewed like that, it would work seamlessly, but you would.
I'd be hard pressed.
Yeah, I'm not sure you've ever walked into a classroom where there's 30 kids. They're just like, why the fuck are we learning this, man?
Yeah, well, and it's also because they're, that's the culture as well. They've come in probably just looking at their phones before they come into class.
Exactly right.
They're texting in between class.
They're on
you can't
Snapchat
compete with that, man.
Exactly, man. Exactly right.
It's not an environment. See, you got to undercut education, right? So like, you can't just go straight to the content, right? Now education, you need to, it's like if you were going to run a marathon, right? You can't just go to the running bit. There's all the prep work before that. So someone like you can go straight to a marathon, right? Because you've got a base fitness. And that's what education used to be like. You could take kids from the street with a base discipline and a base sort of attention span and a base. Now you'd have to rehabilitate all those things. You'd have to rehabilitate their ability to sit still.
Oh, God.
You have to rehabilitate what they're eating even, because it's just poison what they've probably been eating for breakfast, right? And so there's all these undercuts you'd have to do before you then go, okay, now let's talk about maths.
Literally though.
You're trying to come in at this level here, and all the teachers are. But there's a long way down before they get ready to receive the data, Yeah, I mean, I guess we've covered a lot. It's been interesting. I've sort of had a lot to think about what you've said, and I think vice versa.
Well, one thing I'm just really grateful for, man, is your willingness to listen, I guess, and just understand my life, and to do that with an open mind, I think is really appreciated.
Yeah, cool, man. Well, I'm here to understand and talk, and I think you've been awesome, man.
I have a lot of respect for you, Sean. I really do.
Thanks,
I appreciate
man.
this, mate.
Thanks. Love chatting to you, bro.
Thank you, sir.